VetForce is an advocacy organization, a membership organization that's has been an advocate of VIP from the very beginning. When we launched in 2009, when I was walking the halls trying to get attention and resources and to expand the program, to continue the program, VetForce saw the value early on and helped advocate for it. They are an advocacy organization. This morning I had an opportunity to share with the VetForce membership and leadership where the VIP program, an overview, a briefing of the program, the Veteran Institute for Procurement.
First of all, thank Barbara for hosting us again this year. The Montgomery County Chamber has been gracious enough to support the VetForce in its advocacy over several years now.
Gosh,
and we normally been able to have the session up here around September 11th.
That's right. That's right.
But the schedule got a little changed this time, so we're here December, end of the year, to close out for 2018. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Joe, and what a great way to end the year with dear friends and effective members in the veteran community. So Joe and I go back a ways. We were partners in crime, really, at a lot of VA conferences way back when, trying to get traction right on a number of issues, keep the focus where we felt it needed to be on veteran entrepreneurial success in the federal market. And so early on in my outreach and trying to understand the community and its needs, Joe was quite helpful in making key introductions, was a great advocate for the work we do in Veteran Institute for Procurement, the training, the VIP program, and and hence here we are. And so we decided that not only does the Chamber in Montgomery County benefit from the service of our veterans, but also their entrepreneurship. And so we always look forward to the opportunity to connect here in Montgomery County. So thank you for being here today and also for the opportunity to share a little bit about the program. Gigi Godwin sends her best to everyone at VetForce and yourself. She is on a well-deserved, needed, vacation, and so, but she would be here if it wasn't for that. So thank you. She always looks forward to it as well. I'm an executive vice president at the Chamber of Commerce. I'm also, the Chamber has a foundation, the Montgomery County Chamber Community Foundation, that's been around for about 11 years. VIP is going into its 10th year, and I am president of the foundation. The foundation is the funder of the Veteran Institute for Procurement. It's a separate organization, has a separate board of directors, bylaws, and everything else. It is independent of the Chamber, but I am dual-hatted in the organization. So, and a lot of what I do in the Chamber, which is run our government contracting programs, informs how we can best support veterans in their federal pursuits as government contractors. So the one informs the other, so it works quite well. So that's sort of the why, and that's sort of what also got me started into VIP was, realizing that we were in the middle of 2 wars and never had met our veteran small business goals, which, the floor is 3%. And, we had never spent so much money in the history of the United States, and I was just quite shocked and outraged, quite frankly, that we couldn't meet that goal. And so then it begged the question, why? And how can we move that, change that and move that needle? And so that's really how VIP was formed, was out of that goal of understanding how we could better position veterans to win in the federal marketplace. 3 years after we launched VIP, the federal government did meet its goal. And it has met that goal every year since, and it continues to be a number that continues to rise. Again, 3 is just the floor and not the ceiling. So we have very high aspirations for, and I always say when I'm talking to folks that, veterans are the most naturally diverse group of business owners, right? So they're women-owned. They're minority-owned, they're 8As, they're hub zones, right? So you know, when you do business with a veteran, you can, you know, you're actually doing business oftentimes with you know, the whole soup of set-asides, right? Right. So we don't have a separate program for any one of those socioeconomic groups. Veterans in themselves are. So we do have, and you'll see when I go through just some statistics here on the program, we're pretty proud of our diversity of participation. So I will just briefly go over this. I don't know how familiar the group is with the program. So let me see here. It's an in-residence program. So you actually, it's held at the Boulder Center, which is just outside of Washington, D.C. It's 3 days in a classroom. Those are long days. We start at 8 a.m. and anybody who has gone through the program will tell you that it's pretty intense, but we want to make sure we leverage the time that we have you there in the classroom. You know, it is offered to veterans nationwide at no cost. So we pick up the entire tab at the Boulder Center, the hotel, the meals, the training. The only thing we do not pay for is transportation to the Boulder Center and back and forth. So we don't do that. It launched in 2009, so we're going into our 10th year next year. It's pretty exciting. In March, we celebrated our 1,000th graduate. Which is pretty cool. And we also announced at the March graduation a very wonderful partnership with Lockheed Martin. They have always been a part of VIP. Matter of fact, I'm a founder, and one of the other two founders, one of them was from Lockheed, who actually had the same type of, you know, what can we do to move that needle? And sat down and we developed what is now called the VIP program. So in March, Lockheed came in as a corporate partner, which allowed us to add one additional class, which is huge for us, right? It's, so we were able to go from training 200 companies a year to 250. So here's a picture of in the classroom. This is just you know, example of what it looks like. You know, it literally is like a classroom, right? You know, and there are 50 at a time in a class, and so it's very interactive. And we, you know, you can ask questions, and we take breaks after every speaker so that there's opportunities to follow up with them. But the program is classroom-based. I was talking about the socioeconomic statistics. Here you can see it's pretty diverse in terms of who participates. And that's over, you know, 1,100 companies. Also, you know, as I mentioned, with Lockheed coming in, we can train 250 companies this year, up to 250. We have a class coming up in January, VIP Grow. And we'll train 100 in Grow and Start, and then we have International. I'll go into a little more detail in a minute. And we always say the program only works if they win. You know, why do it? Right, you know, and so we you know, the reason why we formed the program is so that we could increase, arm them to win, and we measure against that. So every graduating class gets measured against that, and we track that very closely. Why do it if it doesn't work, you know? So we're very proud of the data, but we monitor it closely. I mentioned there's different curriculums, and here you can see the different programs we offer. Start, Grow, International, Grad. You'll see VBOC and the VIP Marketplace. I'll get into a little more detail on each one of them, just so you have a sense of, you know, what the differences are between the programs. The program we launched originally is now called Grow. It didn't need a name in 2009. It was the only thing we did. Then as we added other curriculum, we had to name them. So that's why you see 777 grads, because that program's been going on the longest. And we launched VIP Start in 2016. Oh, I'm not keeping up with, let's see, yeah, there we go. So what every program has in common is how we approach the curriculum. So people say, you know, you want to manage expectations. What am I going to learn? You know, what am I, you know, 3 days sitting in a classroom, oh my goodness. we focus on always the risk areas. As we all know, mistakes are expensive and oftentimes fatal to a small business. And if you are focused, just think about your own life. When you're focused on a problem, nothing else is getting done. You're not focused probably on the next opportunity. You're not doing anything that's moving the organization forward. As a matter of fact, it's costing you money and time, the two most valuable things that a business owner has. So if we can focus and mitigate your risk, it does a couple of things. It gives you some speed of play because you're not focused on, solving a problem. It's sort of that ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure. We know this. But you can say you know it, but how do you apply it to your business? And so we focus on all the risk areas. And so the instructors are all from industry and government. And so it is with their knowledge and expertise that they have seen over their career and over their work what is going to trip you up, what is going to slow you up. And so we focus on those areas. It also, as you know, everybody in here has experience as a small business owner, knows that it's a challenge sometimes to be able to communicate your capability. And so being able to demonstrate that you are a less risky choice to the customer, whether that's a federal agency or a prime, is in itself a differentiator, right? So that is the one thing that they have in common across no matter what curriculum we're teaching. The one thing I like to always point out, and I'm going to talk about VIP Start for a minute, is that the one thing we don't do in VIP is plant the seed. We only water the plant. And what I mean by that is we don't teach companies how to start a company. We teach you how to start in federal procurement. Big difference, right? So you might have been in business 20 years. We've had somebody come in 4th generation, manufacturing out of Wisconsin, and they're like, I have to go to start, and I'm like, have you ever sold to the federal government? No. Well, then you go to start. Because we're going to focus on, now that you're in this market, what are your risk areas? They are different than if you're in the commercial market, right? So it's not about, we're not going to teach you how to start your business. So that's the biggest kind of myth out there when they say start. Oh, I'm just starting out. And in truth, you'll see here in the next slide that on average they've been in business 4 years and have already 2 employees. We don't require that. But that's, again, what they have decided to do is I'm selling in the commercial market. Or, I have decided to double my efforts. I am now full-time in my business. There's a lot of decisions that could take place, and like, okay, I want to focus on federal. So that's how they come to us oftentimes. So that's sort of the one thing I always like to point out, because everybody's like, I'm not going to teach you how to get a DUNS number and, how to get your license and, set up, your business. So the program has been in, we started in 2016. So it was 2 years in April. So we're going into our 3rd year. We've graduated already almost 300 in 2 years. That is the easiest class to get into in terms of the threshold. So, we have a lot of applicants because it doesn't have as high of a development of your company to get in. You don't have to have employees. You don't have to have a government contract. So we try to meet that demand with offering more programs. So that's why. You can see we still have diversity. And what I'm really excited about, again, why would you do it? 70% of the applicants have never worked in the federal market. But 1 year later, 53% had growth. So, I'll keep doing it as long as it has those kind of outcomes, because again, why do it if it doesn't work? And then they also increase the revenue overall. And the one thing we always like to measure is, did you change the way you do business? What we found is that you can't measure what doesn't take place. So if you didn't grow, was the program a failure? Well, I just said we'd measure our success on their growth, but we also know that if we're mitigating risk, we might have saved your company. So you're going to say you might have had 0 growth, but if you change the way you do business, we have sustained you perhaps for the next opportunity. So we learned that actually in our first class that we actually saved a company that went on to win the T4 and have over 1,000 employees. He didn't grow, but he lived to play another day. That could be important too, right? You know, so we do want to know whether or not you have, you know, taken the the instruction and changed, because we know that there's value in that too. So that's why we ask that question. So and then you know, the grow. So the grow is you're already a government contractor. To get into grow, you already have to have employees. You have to be in business a few years, and we call all of VIP really sort of the Olympic Training Center. It's one of the few programs, the only program I know of that has a national center for training. Most of what SBA does, obviously, is, you know, getting resources out to the districts. But the federal market is a very unique market. It takes place here mostly around the Beltway. Yep. So this is where, if you think about Olympic Training Center, that's where, you know, athletes go that are ready to, you know, take it to that next level, and that's where the best coaching is. And that's why the VIP program is hosted here in the Washington area, because that's where the best coaching is. And we really have to shave seconds off. It's that competitive, right? I don't have to tell you, many of you are government contractors. So we use the analogy that I think most people understand, that, you know, if you just pick up one nugget, shave 1 second, you know, that's the difference between winning and losing. And unlike the Olympics, there is no silver medal in government contracting. So it's that competitive. So we take it that seriously as well. So we look for those that you would expect to have, you know, as the best in the world. You know, and that's what we look for in the instruction. So then the other program we have is, did I skip over? Yeah, some of the statistics. So we also track, obviously, statistics in the GROW program. What's pretty exciting to see for me is that the numbers continue to go up in terms of their growth 1 year after graduation, which is exciting. Also, you can see the difference on the average number of years in business and number of employees from a company. Now, that's the average. Sometimes they'll have 3 employees, sometimes they'll have 90, and over 777, you get an average of 16. So that's you know, how we get, you know, those numbers. So you don't have to have 16 employees to apply for GROW. Another statistic, 1/3 of the VA Vector winners were VIP grads, which is pretty exciting. That's as primes. And I have yet to meet a Vector team that doesn't have a VIP member, VIP graduate as a team. I'm sure they're out. I just haven't met it, but you can't see the teaming. You know, you can only see who won the prime, but not the teaming partners. And we also can track them as they get large. We track them in other ways, right? Are they winning, you know, different awards from their state, from SBA, from Inc. 5000, you know, and other ways to track. A lot of this is all public data, and then we of course do our own surveys. And again, it's all still very diverse, you know, in terms of the participation. Our last curriculum that we launched was VIP International in 2017, and that was really as a result of the SBA changing how they create their scorecard. As you know, now you can no longer exclude contracts performed overseas as part of your denominator in determining whether or not your agency met its small business goals. So, you know, what gets measured, I'd like to think gets done, and so now there will be a renewed interest in finding capable small businesses that can perform those contracts OCONUS. We know veterans are uniquely positioned to respond to OCONUS work. Many of them are not, have traveled the world and have certainly a sense of being dropped out of a plane and having to set up a city, and you know, it's not going to scare them to death. So, you know, all they need to know is sort of the risk areas. What's different than doing business in Kansas than it is in doing business in Afghanistan, and what are my risk areas, right? What do I need? And again, we focus on that. So VIP International is only for VIP graduates because we do not teach in the other classes anything about international work. So we pick up where we left off. You'll see there that the companies are more mature in their development, because to go international there is, you know, a significant cost, and so you have to have the infrastructure to support that. But again, 3 days in a classroom with industry experts, and we focus on risk areas. I'm excited to see we've only had 2 classes. We wait 1 year to survey, so we've only been able to survey 1 class, but we're seeing that they themselves have seen an increase in their awards internationally. But we will continue to track that because that has a longer sales cycle than domestic, than CONUS work. So we'll see. But it did have good results, but I hate to say it from 1 class. You know, that's just 1 dot on a line. The last thing I'll really talk about is the VIP Marketplace, which all graduates have an opportunity to enter. It's an online portal where they can upload their capabilities, and agencies and customers can go in and do keyword searches to match their requirements against capabilities. And that's very exciting. That was developed by a VIP grad for VIP, which is quite generous. And we have about 700 of our graduates in there with their capability statements and their profiles where we can keyword search, again, to match. And also VIP grads can find each other for teaming opportunities. You come in as a class of 50, so oftentimes you won't know the class that came in before you, but there may be a strategic relationship there, and you can do some partnering, and they can find each other now. So you can see that here's an example of a capability statement that's just uploaded. You can see it, you can print it, you can email it, so you can share that information with your team, whether you're a prime or a customer. The customer from a federal agency can do it for market research as well, right, and see whether or not the rule of 2, they can outreach. Our goal is to get 1,000 buyers in there by the end of 2019. And these are some of the ones that are already in. Lockheed Martin has committed to the marketplace. They have 83 buyers in there now. Department of Energy has several buyers, and you can see others in there. Coming soon will be the ones that I mentioned, and more to come. So the only way you can get in, it's a closed loop, is to be a VIP grad or a buyer. It's just a marketplace, right? It's just where you can match your requirements against capabilities. So that's pretty exciting. We're going to track that to see. We don't have any Google Analytics on that. That's to keep the marketplace private. I'm sure nobody keeps a win a secret, and I'm sure I'll be hearing about them.
Question.
Sure.
So you said only VIP, so if you go through START, you're able to get to the marketplace?
Correct.
Okay.
All VIP grads. And then we designate what you graduated, what class, because oftentimes they'll come through a class. 2 years later, they're like, God, what was the name of that person that he was sitting in the row in front of me, so you can go to your class and you can pull up your entire class. So we put you in there by what class you came through and what year as well. So you can do a keyword search and you can pull up your class. But yes, Start, Grow, and International are in there. So the only ones on the shelf, if you think of a marketplace, a grocery store, let's say, the only ones on the shelf are VIP grads. Those are the products. And then the only one that can come into the store are buyers. And that would be primes and government, federal, state, and local. So we've been building this for a while. If you think about your own experience, if you go into a grocery store and you don't find 2 or 3 things you need, will you go back? No. So we had to get a critical number of products, which would be the VIP grads and the services and their capabilities and their geographic distribution, their socioeconomic distribution, so that the odds were when Lockheed went in there or Department of Energy went in there, they'd have choices. They'd find something they're looking for, then they'll come back. And that's what you need, right? You need them to see that as a resource, as a tool. The same thing with the VIPs, right? If you're looking for a teaming partner in Ohio because you have an opportunity that requires you to have a presence there, but you're located in Virginia, I bet I have a VIP grad. Let me go see. Maybe, they want to team with us, and now I have an Ohio presence and a Virginia presence, and we can go after this opportunity. So that's why it was built. It got so big. It used to be we had 50 graduates, 100. I could keep that, but now we're in 48 states, DC and Guam, and you're trying to connect all this capability. You hate to keep it a secret too, right? So it's being able to share that capability with the customer. And we also will open it up to commercial accounts. So you don't have to be a government prime. Like, so many of the primes that are in there also have a commercial component. And so just, when I say buyer, you could be, you know, Disney, and if you wanted to get in. My feeling has always been that if you can do business with the Army, you probably can do business with GE or Honeywell, right? You know, or Disney. They're just as risk adverse as the Army, quite frankly, on their reputation, right? And that's another thing that we track, is that for the last 5 years we've been tracking how well the graduates do in the federal market, but we also track how well they do overall. And it's no surprise that if you adopt best practices, it's going to impact your overall business, not just your federal work. So, you know, again, large companies have, you know, distribution, you know, throughout the U.S. and globally, and they're looking for, you know, small businesses that can scale with them, just like the federal government. So, you know, not to, you know, it's certainly how you market and other nuances to it, but in terms of risk, you know, where we focus, I think that it has demonstrated that has had an impact as well. So these are the training programs. We work off a grant year, not a calendar year. So we are funded in part from donations. We have a fundraiser, we have private donations. We are funded in part by the SBA with a significant cooperative agreement. We're funded now by Lockheed Martin and the state of Maryland. So you have all these, you know, different funders that come in that allow us to scale to 250 a year. So I can't schedule the next class until my grants have been renewed, right? You know, the federal government only gives you, you know, option years, and you can't exercise those until they have a budget. So I'm in that world that you all are in, right? You know, so we just did, for the first time in October, we trained 100 at the same time. Of course, I just said we only do 50 at a time. What we did is we did 2 classes of 50. We've never had done that. So we had 2 classes of 50. They came together for lunch and breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we did that to see, we had a pipeline of applicants that had been waiting quite some time to get into the program. And with Lockheed Martin coming in, we were able then to add an extra start because they were taking up an extra grow, you know, so sort of being able to, you know, shuffle the deck chairs a bit. And we wanted to see if we could scale and still have the same outcomes. And of course, we won't know that for another year. You know, we can measure against their user experience, but we're not into user experience so much as we are outcomes. But so anyway, so we did 100 in October. We have a class coming up in January that we have, I think, 2 openings in, 1 or 2 openings, because that's just about ready to close. So we have about 50 companies in there already. And then March is sponsored by Lockheed Martin, and that'll be another grow, and then VIP International in June. Traditionally, we have offered VIP Start in October, and I'm hopeful if we get our option years with all our grants that we'll be able to do that. But again, as soon as we get those grants, then I can lock in the Boulder Center and sign contracts and announce dates, and that's sort of how we roll. So as I mentioned, you know, it's free to veterans, but there is a cost, and these are the people that pay for it. So we couldn't do it without their support. And, you know, we're a nonprofit, we're a C3, we're a charity. VIP is, you know, does not advocate or litigate, we educate. So we are very thankful to organizations like VetForce that advocate every day on the Hill, and with SBA and other VA on your behalf on policies. We leave that at pretty much at the door, I would say, when they come into VIP. These are the rules, and these are what you have to, you know, this is what you have to manage to. We're not about changing the rules at VIP. You know, this is what the rules are, and this is how you have to manage to them. But, so we do not get into advocacy in that sense in terms of changing policy. But, you know, that's why these are, you know, organizations like VetForce, American Legion, and others, right, are so, you know, important that are watching out for, you know, those issues that impact government contractors that are veteran-owned. So anyway, I will stop at that and certainly, take any questions that you have. I know, Deidre, you were on the phone. I don't know if you're still there. You're a graduate, and anything you want to add, jump in.
I just think VIP is a great program. I think the biggest benefit you get from it, obviously you get to meet a lot of great people. You make a lot of great networking connections, but I also think a great part of it is just being a part of the VIP family, because of all the access being a part of the VIP family allows you. You talked about the portal. You just talked about all the companies that are connected with VIP, and I think those are not things we're thinking about as we're sitting there. You don't really get to see all these things until after you're in the program, and just you just have access to so many different companies that can help you with different things, different companies that you can collaborate with. Just for me, I've been able to collaborate with another VIP graduate company, just because there was some work. There's work that they do that I don't do, but I had a connection, and so it's just lots of opportunities. But I think just the networking and having that access through being a member, basically it's like a club, and like you said, with access to the portal, unless you're in the club, you can't get access to those things. So great opportunity. I learned a great deal when I went through VIP, and this is coming from someone who had worked in the government as a contracting officer, but I learned so much about just running my business coming through VIP.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate your kind words. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, you had a question?
Yes. Thank you, Bob, for your presentation.
Sure.
Very informative. I may have missed this. I saw where the average years in business for each company was, but I'm not sure if I caught the selection process for getting in and onboarding and signing up. What's that like?
It was in that one slide where it had all 5 programs and how do you get in. So it's there, and you have, I think, you don't have the PowerPoint in front of you. I don't think I did that, but I can get back to that real quick. But we only asked 4 questions for each of the programs. So here you can see with START, you have to be an owner and executive. You don't have to be the veteran to come to the class because we're training the company, not the individual. So you graduate as a company. So it's either the owner or the executive. You have to be in business at least 1 year. Have revenue in the past year. You have to, demonstrate that somebody valued what you're selling. And you have to be full-time in the business.
So I saw the requirements, but do I send you an application?
Oh, it's online. So you just go to nationalvip.org. There's an application. It takes about 2 minutes to fill it out. And it's on a first-come, first-served basis. So that's how they come in. They come in date and time stamped.
Did we lose you guys?
I'm sorry?
No, we're still here. Can you hear us?
Yep. So it's an online application process, and the first 50 that get in are accepted and get an email. Then you have to accept back. Just because we accepted you doesn't mean that date works still for you. When life happens and contracts are awarded and weddings are planned, and so we understand that. So you say, okay, yes, I do want to come. And if you can't make it to that one, then you go to the top of the line for the next one. It's not your fault that a date doesn't work. So we don't make you go into the back of the line. You stay in the front of the line, and the next one that's scheduled, we'll let you know, does this date work better for you? But you only have, and if you apply to the wrong program, we don't make you fill out a different application. We just move you over to the right one, because they're pretty much the same application. So that's how you apply. Yeah, it's pretty simple. And then we reach back out to you. If you don't get in because you don't meet the requirements, we'll ask you if you want to go to the class. If you meet a requirement, let's say you applied for GROW, but you don't meet the requirements, but START would be a good fit, we'll ask you if you're interested in START. You can come back and say yes, and we'll put you in that pool. And we'll put you in the same spot. You don't have to go to the back of the line. You go in where you came in. Meaning, so if you came in June, you stay in that June spot, but with a different curriculum, so we're not making you constantly, what do you mean? go to the back of the line. So it's pretty simple. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's just on our website, start, grow, you know, and then the 4 qualifiers for each one are there. Of course, this is only for veteran-owned businesses. You do not have to be CVE certified, because that's not what the federal government requires, right, you know, at this time. You know, if you want to do business with anybody but the VA, it's you self, you know, certify.
Mm-hmm.
So we do not require, many of them are because they do business with the VA, but we don't require it.
Can you send the presentation to Joe and Joe send it out?
Sure, if that's helpful, absolutely, happy to do that.
Yeah, we also, the notices you get about the Vet Force forums, we try to keep up with, we used to anyway, she's been doing these things so frequently now, but we will add the notice about the upcoming starts of the training program, VIP training, so that help get the word out.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
people will
yeah.
know. We've had a number of Vet Force members to participate over the years.
You have?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Lori is a grad. Matter of fact, so in our VIP, we'll have about 36 instructors over those 3 days. Deidre's been a speaker and instructor there. Lori's going to be a keynote speaker. Mark Goldschmidt's an instructor. He's a graduate and an instructor. I know I'm missing quite a few, and that you have through the years. That's right. So we have, at any one time at our VIP program, we'll have about 13 of our graduates participate in different panels or programs talking about lessons learned, offering, you know, just key guidance. So they're part of the.
That was one of the things I was going to ask about, was some of the key topics that are covered in the VIP.
Sure, so we spend a lot of time on operations and program controls, cash flow, balance sheet, finances, accounting, systems. That's going to be something that any customer, you're going to have to be able to demonstrate that you have your organization, your company has that compliance in line. So we spend a lot of time on the accounting and the legal. As well, and then we spend time on capture, the business development cycle, marketing, as well as proposal. Depending on the class you're in, it depends on how we teach proposals or capture, or business development and marketing. And then we spend time on operations and program controls, a lot of time on program controls and grow. Where you get into trouble is, you know, you're running multiple programs, have multiple PMs. How do you know if you're making money? How do you manage that? Now you're hiring people in another state. You've never met those people. What are your risks? You know, as you scale, you have different challenges, right, than if you're just yourself at your kitchen table, which is enough risk, you know, let alone if you. So depending on where your company's development is. So we spend time on operation program controls, and then we do a proposal exercise and start, and we do an RFI challenge exercise and grow. So it's a team building, group effort. So those are the topics. A lot of, I'd say more than half of it is on internal controls. What's going to cost you money? Because, you know, the old leaky barrel, if you keep winning stuff and it's going out the bottom, you know. So we focus on the leaky barrel. And then you have more time and money to focus on the things you really want to focus on. So we focus on the leaky barrel kind of stuff. Yeah, and there are just some best practices out there, right? So.
Right, here in the Washington metropolitan area, I would say VIP is becoming widely, well known. I think most of it. Has anybody here today not heard about the VIP program?
Okay. Well, the PTACs are great partners because, as I mentioned, I gave the analogy of the Olympic Training Center, right? So, you know, athletes come into the Olympic Training Center in and Park City, but the truth is they have to go back and continue to train and hone their skills. And, there is no way in 3 days, in 27 hours, you're going to learn everything you need to know. Let's just be clear. Right. Let me just manage that expectation, get that out there. We will give you some speed of play, and we'll be able to accelerate that, but it is a lifelong journey of learning as a CEO. And so the PTACs are really those coaches on the ground, just like, you can't just go to the Olympic Training Center and then forget, showing up the next day to learn what else you need to know, how you need to train and hone your skills. And so the PTACs and the SBDCs and other resource partners are there to ensure that you have a resource on the ground that keep you focused on what you need to have. So we work closely with the PTACs across the country, and they appreciate, you know, again, they come back a little better prepared to sit down with them, right? You know, you start further along in the conversation than you did before they came to VIP, and so you can be even more impactful.
Because that was my experience with small businesses, period, no matter how long, because they're supposed to come to PTAC after 2 years. I had owned my own IT company for 25 years. I was a government contractor. And then I kind of quasi-retired and doing the PTAC specialist their job for the last 2 years. I'm about to wrap that up. And what I found is that a lot of the companies, like I tell my clients, when you know what you know what you don't know, what you don't know what you don't know, and that's where we come in to help.
That's right. That's right. And it's constant. I mean, it's a very dynamic market, right? You know, so you know you have to, if you're going to be, I don't know any CEO that's successful that isn't a lifelong learner and always looking to pick up, nuggets along the way on how they can up their game and be more impactful to their organization. So it is a lifelong. But it is designed as an accelerator to jumpstart you, to get you started on the right course in federal contracting, to help you navigate the challenges with growth, and it's quite effective in accomplishing those goals. But you can't just stop there and not continue to engage in the conversation and learning. Absolutely. And SBA has been a great partner. So if without SBA, we were only up till 2014 when SBA came in, it would take us all year to raise enough money to hold one class. So we trained 50 a year. So with the support of SBA, we were able to go to 3 a year. And then with the support of Lockheed Martin and the state of Maryland, we're able to go to 4 and 5 a year. So it just takes resources, right? You know, you can do more if the more resources you have. I know a lot of folks here are in the government contracting market. I just received this small business fact sheet. I thought you'd be interested. It just came out of SBA. I thought it was quite interesting. It's just a spotlight on veteran-owned employer businesses. It's not specific to a industry sector, but I thought it was just some interesting data on veterans and entrepreneurship. I thought it was well done and very telling. So that's for your information there. It's what we see. What I found interesting to us is that we do notice that our graduates are older, but that's why, because veteran business owners, I mean, if you've spent 25 years in the military, by the time you get out and start, you're going to be older, you know. And then the other bit of data that I thought might be of interest is Bloomberg. Now, it'll be a year old in January, and look forward to seeing their new analysis, but it's on 5-year trends, so it's still relevant, right? And so I think this is a very good document to help you. If you know where the government is going and the analysis behind it, you can position your company much better to participate in those opportunities. So I find this document to be quite helpful. 5 things you need to know in 5 years of trends. And I'm always, amazed, all this austerity, the government never spends less, let's just be clear. And here it tells you, it has never spent less. So it's still a really good customer, right? Yeah, you want to be in a growing market, don't you? Yeah, well, this is a growing market. And then, of course, the other trend it talks about is how it's spending its money. So it has this, money to spend, how does it do it, And so it kind of talks about, again, you want to see trend lines. No, not too shocking. They are, they're dealing with reduced workforce and contracting, and so how they have mitigated that is by doing GWACs, right, government-wide acquisition contracts, to mitigate their challenges in the workforce. And so contract spending's at a 5-year high. GWAC spending's on the increase. They tell you why. they think it's that way. Small business spending has reached a 5-year peak, which is pretty exciting. Everybody in here is a small business, so I am continually impressed with the small business OSDBUs and their laser focus on your success. It seems to be paying off, right? You know, good trends. You want to see is it as high as we want? No. Could they do better? Always. So could we, right? But it's in the trending is right? So so that's a good thing. Simplified acquisitions have increased, not too surprising. The dollar amount went up. It's also, again, a way of dealing with that backlog of acquisition. Fixed price contracts are on the rise. And what I thought was interesting is that 64% of all procurements are fixed price. I would not have, anyways, that's just important to know. So that's where you take all the risk.
That's right.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So, if you're the biggest customer, I guess you can set, oh yeah. I mean, in your own buying, if you're a really big customer, you have better negotiating power, that's for sure, right? If you're, so anyway, so these are just, I thought it might be of interest, and then I just had a flyer here about the program. And so anyway,
Any more questions?
I did have
Yeah,
one.
sure.
So you said there's no penalty if we apply and we can't attend. We go to if we apply and are accepted and then suddenly the dates don't work, then there's no penalty. We just get pushed.
well, the penalty would be, in this case, I think of a penalty is that you get back to the end of the line. There's no cost to the program, so the penalty is, now you've got to maybe wait a year or two to get in.
Right.
You don't lose because you don't know the date until I know the date, and so
Right.
you apply, at least to start, you don't know the date you're applying for, so it's,
Right. Okay.
until I announce the date, it's not fair, I feel. There's.
Well, I think there is a penalty if you accept and you commit to the hotel and you don't get to show.
That's right, there
that's
is
what-
on that. So
yeah.
once we get to a date where we have to submit that you're committed to come, it's within I think 10 days or 2 weeks of the
Okay.
program, and you cancel and it's not for an emergency.
Right.
I'm in the hospital, family member, emergency. It can't be a business-related emergency.
Right.
Then we are on the hook for $1,000. Yeah, so we have $1,000. We charge you that, but you know that ahead of time. So it's up to within 10 days, something like that, of when the program launches. You can still come through the program again, but we have, what we found is the first time we went national. That's where the costs really go up because I'm picking up hotel, meals, lodging, right? In 2011, we went national. 9 people canceled within 4 days of the program. And I had,
Right.
So I thought, oh, I'm coming, right? Like today, Joe, it's one thing if, we're here and he says there's 41 people coming, I have extra Danish.
Right.
Not a big deal, right? We have never thrown Danish out here at the chamber, just be clear. So it will not go to waste, and it's only, Tuesday, right? So it'll be well taken care of. But in the case of VIP, we're a nonprofit, we have donor money, we have, so since then, since we put in this cancellation, I think in 8 years we've only had 9 cancellations versus 9 in one class. So people think twice and hard, am I coming? And how many emergencies are you really going to have in a class?
Yeah.
Right? So,
It's just 3 days, so, most people
So-
can adjust.
because we pick up the entire tab. So that's the why, and what we have found is that we find out who's really coming. When they've got a little bit of now we don't charge you if you come, but if you cancel within that time period, we charge you for our cost at the hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll think we are going to be there anyway, so we're not going to charge you for our time, but that cost of the hotel room, they won't give that back to us. Yes, sir.
Classroom speaker and qualification for the course.
Oh, how do we pick our instructors? Oh, that's the secret sauce. And I'll tell you the secret sauce, because you all know it, if you think about it. So we all went through, education system. How many teachers do you remember?
Good ones.
One or two, most of them.
And now I'm sure all of them knew their subject. I am positive that my geometry teacher knew geometry. She just couldn't teach worth beans. But nicest person on the planet Earth, heart of gold, knowledgeable, couldn't instruct. But man, did she know geometry. So the secret sauce is finding those that are the best in terms of expertise and knowledge, but can instruct. That's the art and science. And that's what you're paying me for. Is trying, when I say paying me for, you're not, but I mean, that's the hardest part of what I do is you know, I wouldn't say the hardest, but it's tough because there are a lot of really smart people out there that if you were going into battle, you would want them sitting next to you, you know, advising you, but don't put them in front of a classroom, they'll die.
Monotone.
Well, you know, they're just, that's an art. You know, I mean, I think you really appreciate those teachers that could bring it to life and get you to 3 days in a classroom, my God, talking about finance and cash flow. So the instructors, that's a tricky part. That's the tricky part, right? Because everybody there is, again, is the subject matter expert. But can they bring it to life? Can they get you to understand it? That's hard. That is harder than it looks. I mean, I have to tell you, you know. And so I always take it back to your own personal experience, right? How many and you know they all knew
So
it.
they go through some type of like formal instructors, or like you said, screening, or those that conduct briefings on a regular. You know, what are you looking for?
I'm looking for, I'm in every, so I have not missed 1 minute of VIP. So I've sat through all 10 years of classes. So I watch you all. I'm sitting in the back of the room, right, Deidre? I'm sitting in the back of the room. And I can tell people are engaged or
you lost them.
And if you lose me. Not that they're not the smartest. I mean, these are people that, are outstanding experts. They just, it's a skill that so I use the user experience, I'm in there and if I can't follow what you're saying, and I watch faces and, engagement and, it's hard. It's hard to take, it's a very complicated subject to distill it to an hour of, and I think the hardest part for anybody is, I'll tell them they have 1 hour. We're covering 20 topics over 3 days. We have 36 instructors. I got 3 teed up. You have 1 hour to teach them everything you know. Everything you know in your brain that they need to know, right? That's the hardest part, right? I leave it up to them to figure it out to some extent. What, if I only had 60 minutes to tell you the most important thing, what would it be? All right, because that's all you have. Because they're not going to train you to be an attorney, to go to, or an accountant. I mean, but what do I need to know? Right, so that's the hard, it's the hardest part, I think, of any training is figuring it out who can teach. And when I say who can teach, it's, you can relate to your own, schooling, and I can, like I said, probably on one hand.
I would say too is also how much you participate. Because as good as the instructor is, just sitting in the room, you're not going to walk away as a brilliant contractor just from hearing it. You've got to actually then follow up and do some some research, and apply some of the things you heard to make it all come together. So. But this is really great. The program has really grown tremendously. Like I said, we've got so many people here in the Washington metro area that have participated in the program, so we get to hear from them, at least, some of us do, on a regular basis. So we see that they're still, growing and expanding in what they're doing in the federal marketplace. Yeah,
so we have about 700 graduates, within 100 miles of D.C.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not a surprise. I mean, it's a lot of veterans in the DMV area, and government contracting is what takes place around the Beltway. It does in other, of course, regions as well. There are pockets, but predominantly, you know, this is where the customer is, right? So, yeah,
Let
so.
me see if anybody on the phone line had any other questions?